Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's pretty clear that regardless of what we may be debating here in the Senate, the American people are focused mostly on inflation, the crime wave that's affecting the entire country, and the open borders. There's been a good deal of talk about what some of the governors have done to transport illegal immigrants up to other parts of the country. I personally thought it was a good idea, but if you added up all of the illegals who've been taken to Chicago or Washington or Martha's Vineyard, it would be fewer than people down in Texas have to deal with on a daily basis. When the Vice President says the border is secure, it's absurdly incorrect. And I think these are the kinds of things the American people would look to this administration for some solutions on, and so far they are lacking.
Over the weekend, the administration hinted that they may get rid of the toddler mandate at Head Start facilities. But as of right now, this rule, which is still in effect, requires children as young as 2 years old to wear masks, even when they are out on the playground. It's very clear the impact this has on a student's educational development, and the data is pretty self-evident on that, and yet the administration has adhered to, and I have fought them for months to try and get this policy changed, and we are now in the third year of this policy that requires kids, again, 2 years old, to wear masks even when they're out on the playgrounds. So I'm hoping that this is an indication of the administration's views on not only this but other subjects with respect to the pandemic. The President, I think as everybody knows, over the weekend said the pandemic is over. Well, it would have been nice if he had come to that conclusion before he used the pandemic as the legal basis to do a loan bailout for student loans across this country. It could have saved taxpayers in this country somewhere between $600 billion and $1 trillion, is which the Penn-Wharton budget model suggests the student loan bailout program will cost taxpayers in this country. It is simply a shift from the 13% of people in this country who have student loans to the 87% of the people in this country, taxpayers who don't have student loans, who are going to end up paying the bill for this. It is yet another slap in the face from this administration to hardworking taxpayers across this country. And it is unfortunate because the administration, had they been willing to acknowledge that the pandemic was over sooner, might have avoided passing a bill, another bill, on to the American taxpayers to the tune of upwards of $1 trillion.
Well, as Senator Thune was pointing out, the administration is making it incredibly difficult to know what the message is moving forward on the pandemic that's no longer a pandemic, but we still need, according to them, the emergency powers that you'd have in a pandemic. And that does allow things like forgiving student loans. Well, actually, it allowed specifically postponing the collection of student loans, and they decided, well, we'll just postpone the collection permanently, which is a stretch of that authority, even if it was in existence. But why you need to continue to have the emergency authorities you have in a pandemic when the pandemic is over, or why you need billions of dollars to buy vaccines that are no longer provisionally available but could be bought by whatever your health care program that you're on now, just like your flu shot can. There's no reason for all of the American people to continue to borrow money for something that needs to move, as the President said himself, into a different category now of how we deal with this issue. Who pays for it, when you pay for it, how you pay for it, and what authority the administration wants to continue to hold on to for all the other things that appear to be possible under this emergency authority that clearly would not be necessary if there's no longer a pandemic. To get the COVID money that they have been saying for months that if they didn't have in the next 2 or 3 weeks, there'd be big problems for the country. But then these problems never appear to occur, and they continue to find the money that they theoretically didn't have. It really creates a lot of credibility crisis as we move into trying to look at what their requests are versus what they may really intend to do with the money or really intend to do with the authority.
In Iowa and all across the Midwest, we are rapidly approaching what is my very favorite time of year, and that is harvest time. And I have very fond memories as a little girl riding in the combine with my dad and my uncle and my grandpa. And as I got older, then getting in the tractor and actually driving the grain in a wagon to the bins where the grain could be dried. But as we are approaching this harvest season, farmers are facing sky-high diesel fuel. That's the fuel they need for their combines and their tractors. And then once the grain goes into those bins, we have to dry down that grain. And we do that by using propane gas. And this year, liquid propane costs are nearly double what they were last year. And then as those temperatures come down, our livestock producers have to heat their barns for their animals. And then we roll into home heating season in Iowa, where our home heating costs are expected to go up by 17%. And electricity is at a 40-year high. You see where I'm going, folks? Things are really hard on folks across the Midwest right now. It's hurting our farmers, our livestock producers, our neighbors. And yet the White House saw fit to have a very elaborate party on their South Lawn just a week or so back, celebrating the plight of everyday American who's out there trying to make ends meet. So what we need is common sense legislation, which is why today I'm promoting Senator Shelley Moore Capito's permitting reform bill. I think this is a common sense way to move forward, open up energy production, and help bring down those prices, not just for our farmers, but for everyday American.
Florida is a pro-immigration state, but we're pro-legal immigration. You just saw the numbers that this is the first year that 2 million people have crossed our southern border illegally. When I go home, Floridians ask me, why is this happening? They don't understand that why can Vice President Harris or the Secretary of Homeland Security go basically completely lie and say the border is secure. Floridians don't want people coming across our border that are terrorists, they're criminals. They don't want drugs coming across the border. Floridians know how many people are dying of drug overdoses. So when people ask me, why is the Biden administration doing this? No one can ever explain why they're doing this. Why do they want to have an open border to the land of opportunity? The other issue that Floridians bring up is, why doesn't Joe Biden care about the fight for liberty and freedom in Latin America? And why would Joe Biden reduce sanctions on the Cuba regime or Maduro regime in Venezuela? Last week on Thursday, I had a press conference in front of the White House with activists from Cuba and Venezuela and Colombia and Nicaragua. And they basically want the Biden administration to start standing up for freedom and liberty. Hold people accountable that are part of the groups that are out there harassing citizens in their states. Fight for the peaceful protesters that are in prison in Cuba right now. Hold the regimes accountable. But the Biden administration, in Florida, people don't understand, why does the Biden administration not care about controlling our border? And why does the Biden administration not care about the fight for liberty in Latin America?
Leader McConnell.
Yeah.
I'm here this week.
I called on you last week and you weren't here.
Sorry. Glad to get two today. In any event, do Republicans think that there is a pandemic? And does the president need to clarify the state of where we are with this pandemic?
Well, I think the American people have decided to get back to normal. And you can argue, as Senator Blunt pointed out, where we are in all of this, but I think people are getting back to normal and leading the kind of lives they did before. That does not necessarily mean that COVID has disappeared, but I think we're all learning to live with it.
Leader McConnell, will you support the Kigali ratification?
I haven't decided. We just had a really interesting discussion about that at our conference, and I haven't really decided.
Do you have like factors you're weighing?
No, as I said, I haven't decided.
You had said last month that you think the House is more likely to flip than the Senate. As we head into the final stretch of the campaign season here, is that still your view?
Well, I've consistently said for 2 years now that the Senate is 50-50, the country is 50-50, and I think the outcome for the Senate is likely to be 50-50. We've got a bunch of hard-fought races. We're all giving it our best on both sides, and I think it's a jump ball.
Leader McConnell,
Yeah.
will there be 10 Republican votes for Joe Manchin's permitting reform, especially considering this is part of the IRA deal that you guys opposed?
Well, I think the best answer to that is that all of us, I believe, voted for Shelley Moore Capito's permitting bill during the vote-a-rama. That's the one I think that most of us feel would actually make a difference. I don't think Senator Manchin has yet actually produced his bill so that you can take a look at it. Most of us would like to see genuine permitting reform. Sounds like that's kind of a red line for the Democrats. Whether they would ever accept this or not is unclear. You'd have to ask Schumer.
Leader